A very warm and hearty good day to all of you. My name is Ramanpreet Kaur Bhatia. I'm a chartered accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, a certified practicing accountant from CPA Australia, and a distinguished Toastmaster from Toastmasters International. In this video, I'll be explaining the concept of industry remote environment analysis. I'll be explaining the concepts, the facts which affect the industry remote environment analysis, the tool to do remote environment analysis, that is the STEEPLE analysis. I'll be also discussing all 7 factors of STEEPLE analysis and the checklist for the same. I'll also be talking about how to summarize the result of STEEPLE analysis. I hope all of you will find some values in today's video. So let's start. Industry remote environment analysis. In our last video, we defined the industry. We also defined the value chain of industry. We defined the relevant segments of the industry. We also learned about different stages of industry life cycle. Now we know all the definitions, so we can easily proceed to analyzing the remote environment and the industry operational environment, the competitive environment. However, in this video, we'll be concentrating mainly on a remote environment analysis. What is remote environment? Those influences that affect the industry and are out of organization's control. This is my organization, this is industry, and this is the outer remote environment. I can control my own capabilities. I can control my organization's environment, but I cannot control the remote environment. That environment, those factors which are external to my control. So why do we need to understand remote environment analysis? So that we know the effect of these factors on the growth of a particular industry. We know how the industry is growing, whether it is growing or not. And so we can make appropriate strategy for its operations. That is why the remote environment analysis is very important. Now, remote environment analysis, understanding how the industry has evolved in its current state and being able to explain how it has changed over time is important. Why is this important? Because if we know the past trends, how we have come in the present shape, this helps the organization to anticipate any future change, including the size and nature of future growth opportunities. That growth rate could be positive as well as negative. So why we do remote environment analysis? To understand the future opportunities for growth. Right? It is essential for strategy development that future growth, profitability, and opportunities can be anticipated or at least estimated based on past experience and data. It is possible that history might give an indication about future anticipation and foresight, but that is not 100% possible. Predicting future trends can be accurate if quick planning and strategy is directed towards industry trends. So what we need to do is, why the remote analysis is being done, to understand the industry's growth, the factors which concerns the industry's growth. For that, we have to see what happened in the past, what were the past trends that has brought the organization in its present state. Based on this analysis, we predict how the future is going to be. What will be the future trends? So based on those predictions, we will do the planning. So this is the nutshell of remote environment analysis. The time frame for future growth is also a very important factor for consideration. Why? Because this time period can vary as little as 2 years to as long as 20 years. The important thing is that the time frame should be consistent within the definition of long term. What we are concerned is that the growth should be long term. Now, this long term, the definition of this long term could vary industry to industry. For example, if we say if it's a normal industry, right? It's a small industry. The time frame, the long term time frame for growth is 3 to 5 years. But if we are talking about, say, IT industry, it is 2 to 5 years. But if we are talking about forestry, or if we are talking about education, or if we are talking about biotechnology industry, that normal time frame, which is considered to be long term, could be as long as 10 to 20 years. Right? So what we want is the growth probability in the long term. This long term could vary as per industry. So that is the reason why we do remote environment analysis. Now, how we do remote environment analysis? The tool that we do use for remote environment analysis is STEEPLE. What exactly is STEEPLE? It is the process where power strengths are analyzed and future predictions are made. Based on the results, we make a strategy, which essentially means it is an approach to consider and identify the key drivers of what were the historical trends and future growth. How do we use that? In efficient and systematic way. Why do we use that? So that it can help us in gaining a greater knowledge of industry and help us to be more specific. If I know that this particular factor is responsible for industry growth or industry decline in past, and this is what is going to be the future prediction about that particular factor, I can make my strategy accurately. Of course, I need to make changes as per the changes in environment, but at least for starting the planning, I need to know about these trends. I need to identify those factors which affect the growth. Right. So it considers an overall macro environment of an industry, those uncontrollable factors that influence the industry growth. And friends, remember that when we talk growth rate, we always say average growth rate. What is average growth rate? Usually a combination of population growth and price inflation. So when we analyze the factors, what we need to consider the two questions, that how this particular factor has contributed to shaping the industry into its current state. And the next question is, will this change in future? If so, what impact this factor will have industry growth in future? Right. So these are the two basic questions that we need to ask, or these are the two basic reasons why we are doing steeple analysis. We are able to assess the effect of each of these factors and will make our plan and direct the company in a way that is most relevant to these highly detrimental forces. So this is basically about the industry and understanding the context in which an industry operates. Right? Analyze each and every factor of steeple. And what do we have to do in that? Analyze the past trends, make the future predictions, and based on these two, make an how to analyze the overall impact of that factor on industry growth, whether it's going to be positive or whether this factor is going to negatively impact the growth of the industry. Accordingly, make a strategy. Right. So this is remote environment analysis tool. What are the factors of steeple? So it's this word contains 7 letters, STEEPLE. There are 7 letters which stands for social, technological, environmental, economic, political, legal, and ethical. This is the steeple is a refined version of earlier we used to use the word pestle, Pestel, but that is only that word contains only 6 letters. Additional E is missing, and that E is for ethical. So ethical factors are a newest addition in this remote environment analysis. So steeple analysis means the analysis of these 7 factors that impact the industry growth. What were the trends? We'll take each of these factors. We'll see what were the past trends that have brought the industry in its present shape and what will be the future predictions for this particular factor. Based on that prediction, based on that analysis of past trend, we'll make a strategy for each of these factors. Remember, all these factors are beyond our control, beyond an organization's control. Now we'll analyze all these factors one by one. First, we'll talk about social factors. Now, society is a combination of demographic and sociographic factors. What are demographic factors? They are the easiest to measure, and hence, most of the times, we often overlook these in strategic analysis. If you read the module, it gives an example of developed countries, and it says the population growth in developed countries is generally very low. For example, Australia is experiencing an aging of its population. The number of people above 65 are expected to grow from 15% to about, say, 20 to 23% of the total population in the coming years. What does this mean? Population growth rate changes can affect the needs of population growth. Accordingly, we need to set up a strategy to up or down the product cost. If my population is, most of my population is the aging population, that means they would need more medical facilities. That means that they would need more hospitals. They would need my expenditure on total health care will be more. And if the population is aging, most of my population is aging, that means the young population is very low as compared to the aging population. That means my working power is low. That means the tax paying people are less. So accordingly, I have to make a change in my strategy. That is why we need to consider the social factors, right? Another example is, could we be reducing the birth rate and immigration program? Right? If the young population is less, that means there is less demand for primary schools and products associated with children. So accordingly, the strategy needs to be made. On the other hand, in some countries, we say that the number of elderly people is rapidly rising. The same thing which I said earlier. So there is a higher growth rate for those industries which are engaged in hospitals or retirement villages or medical industry. So what we see is the past trend. And then we make a prediction about that specific group of population growth so that we can make an appropriate strategy. This was about demographic trends, just an example, right? If we talk about the socio-cultural trends, it is again very important to identify and understand these because it is important for being able to adapt to future success. As a leader, we should be aware of the different cultures or work. When these days, this is the age of globalization, right? And this globalization can impact many aspects of the society, from values or beliefs to taste or even behavior, right? We say that in developed countries, there is people usually have higher disposable income, right? So the demand for luxury products would be more in that place. If you say that I want to produce a luxury brand, but I want to introduce that product in a developing economy, no, it's not right. Because in developing economy, people are already busy making living. They are already busy doing their works. They do not have that much income so that they can spend on luxury goods. So based on this analysis, I'll make a strategy of not making that luxury goods would be more profitable in developed countries, but not in developing countries. And vice versa, there could be many other products which are useful in developing countries, but not in developed countries. Why? This is because of socio-cultural trends. right? And how do we get to know about this? The collection of information. How are we collecting this information? Through social media, right? Even we can say that the projection on social media, some people like to post each and everything on social media, that influence other people. That's why we say that there are so many influencers on social media. So people get influenced, and based on that influence, they go and buy products. They go and make their expenditure. So that is usually with the trends, with the habits, with the needs. So we have to also ensure the use of social media or technology, because these enable the organization to communicate with their stakeholders and involve them in decision making, respond to their feedback, customize their products, satisfy individual needs. And this is a part of social factors. So if you see the checklist for social factors, changing population profile, changing work profile, people who are working part time, they may have different needs as compared to those who are working full time. Females might have different needs, males may have different needs, right? So cultural profile, educational profile, family structure. If it's a nuclear family, the needs are less. But if it's a joint family, different kinds of needs are there, different kind of values are there, so they need different products, right? Collection of social information trends through social media. So these are all social factors. Again, we'll just repeat the purpose of doing steeple analysis. These factors are beyond our control. We are analyzing, we are checking the past trends, we are checking how these past trends have brought the organization in its present state, and how we are going to make a prediction for future. And based on that, we'll be making our strategy, right? So these are the social factors. Now we'll talk about the next factor, which is the technological factors. Now, technological factors, technically speaking, this is the most important factor among all seven factors of steeple. Why? Technology is present in all spheres of the world these days. When we talked about social factors, we said the social factors influence the growth rate of the of an industry, right? But how do we gather that information? How do people, how do we influence people's needs and their behaviors? Through technology, through social media, through different apps. Technology is present there. If we'll talk about economics, we'll come to those factors right just now. That if we talk about different political factors or economical factors or legal factors, technology is prevalent everywhere, right? In each and every sphere of life these days. And one very important thing to consider for technological factors is that this is present in all other factors, right? So what is important if we talk about just now I said, if it when we'll say, when we'll talk about the economic factors, technology is there. How do we gather information? Through technology. If we talk about finance industry, the high frequency trading algorithms and ultra fast internet connections are used to create, process, make the trade faster with other markets, right? So that is all because of technology. Trading in just a fraction of second earlier than the competitor allows the companies to take advantage of those price movements before anybody else can take over, right? That is the use of technology. This has changed so much, and to the extent that some companies have gone and installed their internet servers as close as possible to the servers of security exchanges. Where is this important? This is important in case of stock exchanges. Every second, every fraction of second is important. How is that edge possible? Because of technological factors. Because of technology, communication takes less time, because technology is present in almost all spheres of our lives, right? So The book gives us some of the technology forces. Of course, these are not the only technology forces. There are so many others available, but in this module, we'll be studying about these. Right? Cloud computing, we have augmented and virtual reality, we have cognitive computing, we have blockchain, we have ambient experience, we have exponential intelligence, we have quantum computing, modernizing core technology, analytics, digital twin. Right? So all this is present within technological factors. What, for example, what is blockchain? Blockchain, this particular technology, it helps us to establish security and trust on a distributed network. This is seen as one of the most potentially transformative technology of recent years. If we talk about quantum computing, the technology promises a future with vastly superior processing capabilities. Right? AI computing, almost human-like communication and decision making, but with the precision of a computer and speed of the computer, almost like humans. It has its mind, it has the capability for decision making, but the speed is faster. Hence, we can conclude that as technology management is now a key part of corporate strategy, this is essential that IT and finance leader work together. We as CPAs, we as finance leaders, we have to work with the technology. We have to understand all these terms. The organization should have disciplined, measured, innovative programs that align motivation with business strategy. Now, all these terms are there in the book. What you need to do is just make an index of your notes, make notes on this, or you can use these notes, make an index of these notes, and because questions might be asked based on these specific words. Right? So I'll just explain this digital twin also once, because this term digital twin will come in further modules also. What is digital twin? The purpose of digital twin is to highlight those factors which might hinder the implementation process, the implementation strategy. What happens is all the artificial intelligence is fed into the system. Users interact with the system. Whatever is stopping me from making a good strategy gets sidelined by the system, and the filtered result is available to me so that I can make correct decisions. So digital twin is everything is being fed into the system. The wrong things get filtered out and the correct thing comes to me. This is the simple layman term explanation of digital twin. This digital twin will come in other modules also. So what is the checklist for technology factors? Dependence on technology, changes in industry interaction, working style because of technology, changing distribution style of products or services, changing speed of innovation or changes in cost. Will it make my industry to exit or change the way of operation? If I am able to cope up with the changing technology, of course, I will remain in the competition. If I will learn the new technology, of course, I'll remain in the competition. If I am not able to cope up, if I am not able to come to the standards of changing technology or the innovations which is happening around me, if I'm not able to cope up, I'll have to exit. So it is very important to understand these factors. We have to understand the technology factors. We have to see where the technology is affecting the working of my organization, of the industry as a whole. I'll analyze the past trends. I'll see what were those trends that has brought the industry to its present stage. Based on that, I'll make future predictions. And based on those predictions and trends, I'll make the strategy. Remember this again and again. Now we'll talk about the third factor, which is the economic factors. Just being known for a fact that the growth or decline of an general economy can affect an industry growth. And what are some of these economic factors? We know, we've studied about it. We know that the factors which can affect an industry are changes in GDP, inflation rates, employment levels or unemployment levels, interest rates, exchange rates, wage rates, etc. Although these are generally, broad indicators, but it is preferable to identify more specific indicators that link directly to industry under analysis. If we talk about economic factors, this is a comprehensive list, right? This is it's a we always say that the important economic factors include, but the list is long, right? And we never know that employment levels have effect on my industry. I need to understand that it might be possible that my industry has nothing to do with employment levels. It might be possible that my industry is more and more involved with will get affected because of change in exchange rates. My kind of industry will get affected more by inflation rates, but not in changes in GDP. So we have to understand, we have to identify those specific indicators that affect directly to the industry under analysis. An example of this could be the setting of interest rate, the macroeconomic policy tool to influence the general level of economic activities. But if we talk about specifically about housing industry, now these are the general factors. I am talking about the housing industry. What is the most important economic factor that I need to analyze? Interest rate. That's a prime determinant of demand for new housing. Hence, those organizations which are in this particular industry, they have to carefully monitor and forecast the interest rate. Why? To predict future housing demand. Another issue that we have to consider is generally economies go through, say, either boom or bust. So we have to be careful. We have to underplay during boom, and we need not to restrict ourselves during the bust. Precisions need to be made about future very cautiously. For example, if we say that economy has declined in past year or two because of recession, there is a possibility. We know, of course, that's a trend, but we know that there is a probability that it will recover in future. But if they say that economy is growing at such a higher rate, as a cautious leader, I will slow down. I know this is a boom. This will not last forever. So I should not be taking this particular trend in my consideration. Or if I'm taking this particular trend in my consideration, I have to understand this fact that right now it's the boom time. But at some point in time, the economy will slower down or will stabilize or will come to its normal level. So this trend will not continue for long. We have to understand this, and we have to analyze each and every economic factor very, very cautiously, and of course, which is suitable to my particular industry. So what is the checklist for that? Dependence for economic growth, effect of changes in key economic factors, financial implications, exchange rate effects on import or export, customers spending power. Now this, the customer spending power, we are talking about spending power. This is primarily an economic factor, but it could be classified as social factor also, right? Labor cost. Again, as we said in last sheet also, technology used for information collection, right? So these are economic factors for us. The next we have environment factors. Now, an example of this, the external remote environment influences, which is becoming very important these days, is government environmental legislation attempting to counter the effects of climate change. The properties are being built, bought, sold, rented in so many countries. But there has to be an energy performance certificate. These buildings should be adhering to building cladding rules. What is this? These are environment factors which might affect the operation of an industry. The environmental factors, we know it's a growing concern over climate change, over other bad factors, bad influential factors of particular industry. How particular industries could damage the entire environment. We have to analyze the negative impact that is associated with producing the products. As an organization, I have to go towards renewable energy. I have to go towards green products. I have to go towards biodegradable products. I have to go towards other low energy consuming substitutes. Right. So these are environmental issues for us. We have to consider this. As leaders, we have to understand that these might impact our day to day life. Now, if you remember, in module 1, we also studied about corporate social responsibility and business ethics. If you want to link it closely, it is very much interconnected with environmental factors. Why? An organization should encourage good effects and should stop and reduce the worst effect of its operation on the environment as a whole. It should be concerned about pollution based disposal, water quality, polluting waterways, because these are the things that will have negative impact on employees also, on consumers also, and also on community at a large. So there are different legislations even being put up these days. There are laws being put up these days, and these have compelled the leaders to take into account any kind of environmental factors which can affect the operations of the industry, which can affect the future growth of the industry. So we have to understand these environmental factors. Again, there are some examples being given in the module. These examples will come up in further modules also. There is a word these days which is called circular designs, which means the entire life cycle of the product need to be considered at the designing stage as well as at the sourcing stage. Right? We should be renewing our products. We should not be making those fabrics which cannot be recycled. Or we should discard those fabrics which are made out of leather. Overall, these could be a win-win situation for any organization, as we as leaders represent ourselves as a responsible business. At the same time, we are also giving an opportunity to our organization to improve our productivity, to reduce our costs, to be able to reach to consumers, to be able to project a very good image of our business on our consumers. Right? So these are environmental factors which are very important. These factors we need to consider. We have to see the past trends. Again, I'm repeating that. We have to see the past trends, how those past trends have shaped the organization in future. Based on that past trend analysis, we will make a prediction about future. Based on those trends and predictions, we will be making a strategy. Of course, we will be changing and remodifying our strategy, which will be based on the changes which come forward as and when. Right? So this is environmental factor for us. Now, the next factor that we are going to study is political factors. We know that there is no company in the world which can work without political influence. Is there any organization which says that no, I am aloof, no policies, no political changes will apply to me? No. There are some legal issues. Those legal issues, of course, there is a concept of legal factors also under STEEPLE analysis. But for a matter of fact, we know that the legal factor and political factors are usually closely linked. For example, we say that the reduction in trade barriers due to encouragement by World Trade Organization is a political trend. The issue in particular is not directed to any particular industry, yet it is having a profound impact on various industries. Remember, this is an issue covered under legislation. Right? Sometimes there could be an overlapping, but we have to be wise enough to make a distinction between legislation, between legal factors and political factors. For example, we say that tax policy is a political decision. It's a political factor. But taxation rate is an economic issue. So understand the difference between policy and economic factor. Tax policy might get changed every year, right? That is a political factor. The taxation rates, the impact of taxation rates is an economic factor. So that classification you need to do. There could be an overlapping, but you have to apply your mind very cautiously to this, right? Similarly, when we said that earlier, we said technological changes also affect politics, political design, the decisions. Technology changes are all prevalent in almost, again, as I said, in all the factors. So what is the checklist for political factors? Reliance on future policies. Based on that, if we have good policy, if we have good policies worldwide, we know that we can grow. Impact of political factors, legislative changes. Will my industry be affected by tax policy? Will this particular tax policy will increase or boost my export or import? Right. This is just an example. So the import and export might be affected by that tax policy. So we need to understand that this side of the political factor. Tariff and international trade, right? The World Trade Organization, when they say that there would be no trade barriers or there would be less trade barriers, that means more competition can come in my industry, right? That is a political decision. So I need to understand the different political policies which are being made all around the world. The rebates and subsidies, again, as I said, competition policy, new government changes. When the government change, the policies will change, right? So that is the influence of political factors on us. Now we come to the next factor, which is the legal factor. All legislative changes bring change in consumer behavior if the prices go up and down. Make an interconnection between legislative changes and social factors. These legal drivers or legal factors are very prominent. Not only local and national laws, but international laws are also very important for us to understand. Why? Because globalization is happening. So any legal regulation, any legal restriction, any legal implication in one part of the world will impact the other part of the world. The example given in the module is of Australian tobacco industry. It says that the tobacco industry has been significantly affected by the introduction of new regulation banning labeled packaging. Why? Because we are talking about globalization. We have to understand all laws and we have to understand those laws in conjunction with our local laws. Right? Any change in regulation or compliances could be in response to public opinion and the goal of an organization. Sometimes we make the legislations to protect the industry. Sometimes to protect, we define the terms, we define the conditions. An example is what is happening with the increase in scrutiny and focus on audit professions. These days, as auditors, we all know that the laws are very strict. And this has resulted in the audit firms, they have to issue transparent report. Why? Why is this so? This is because of the legal factors, because of the legal implications. Right? There are so many agencies sitting on our heads directing us what to do. So not only a regulation is there, but a regulating authority is also there. These are all legal factors. So what is the checklist for legal factors? Effect of legal policies on our business. Will legislation protect me from competition? Will legislation restrict my ownership? Will there be a ban on production? Will there be an action on my organization because of my past activities? Maybe I have done something bad in the past, I have done some kind of malpractice in the past. Because of that activity, I might get punished now. Effect of technology on information collection system, right? And the last, but not the least, we come to ethical factors. What are ethical factors? What is the checklist for ethical factors? We um, um, we say that, of course, we have done this, that the ethical factors is something which is related to, again I said, corporate social responsibility. This ethical factor, this is the a new introduction here in the remote environment analysis. These are, somewhere down the line you will also go and find, as I said, we'll find the word pestle, which used to be used in place of steeple. Now if you see the difference, this is the new factor. What are ethical factors? Because there is so much excess of information than before, there is so much higher expectation on organizations to behave responsibly, right? And this has influenced the organization for their strategic decisions. Organizations need to consider any process, any action that may impact organization's ability for what? To do its practices in an ethical manner, in an acceptable manner. Nobody is forcing me, but I need to provide good working condition to my suppliers, to my employees. I need to pay well to my employees. I need to ensure the safety standards of my within my industry. I need to understand and to reduce the emissions based by products, or I have to reduce the side effects of the industry on suppliers and to the overall community as a whole. These are my ethics. These are my beliefs. These are my values. I have to understand that not everybody has same ethics. So what is my role as a finance leader? As a finance leader, my primary role is to balance, protect, and preserve all stakeholders' interests. So I have to, not only I have to act with my personal integrity, I also have to provide accurate, objective, and meaningful information. That would be a good ethical decision from my side as an auditor, as an accountant, as a finance leader. What is there in my limits? I can provide accurate information. I can provide objective information. I can provide meaningful information so that everybody's interest is protected. That is my ethics, right? So given the full disclosure of my audit report, being transparent in my reporting, also as a finance leader, I have access to sensitive information. I have to secure its handling. I have to comply with all rules and regulations. So this is the last factor that we consider in steeple analysis. So in total, we have 7 factors. Just go by the word steeple: social, technology, environment, ethical, economic, technology, political, and legal. Right? So these are the 7 factors which we consider when we do the remote environment analysis. Now, after we have analyzed, we have to summarize. I have to conclude whether these remote factors are favorable for industry's growth or not. And with this analysis, I'll get a comprehensive list of factors that have shaped the historical growth and are likely to affect the future growth. Right. So what is the next step after capturing the key factors? What is the process for that? The first step is assess each issue that you have identified and retain those which you have identified having a positive, neutral, or negative impact on the growth of the industry. Remember that what is the growth rate that we are talking about? We are talking about the average industry growth rate. We, based on that average, say for an industry, the average growth rate is 3% over next to 3 to 5 years. So right now we are examining whether the if we achieve this average rate, we'll mark that as positive. Conversely, if we understand that the particular factor will make the growth slower or might hinder the growth at all, then that factor is producing negative effects. Second step is summarize each positive and each negative. How will you do that? By giving consideration to the relative importance of each factor. What does that mean? There are some factors which are relatively more important than others. So even if there is an equal number of positives and negatives, but if major factors, the important factors are positive, the conclusion is on positive side. There may be a situation where there are many positive factors, but there is one heavy negative factor which may outweigh all of those positives. We need to understand that the ultimate result will be negative. But that is just a subjective professional judgment. We just need to apply our subjective assessment here. We have to identify the reasons for our conclusion, and then we'll have to make a summary. And this summary helps to integrate the factors that have potential for industry growth. It also helps us to understand if we have missed any information. And we know whether the industry is growing because of this analysis, whether the industry is growing at a faster rate, if the industry is growing at an average rate, or if the industry is slower than an average rate. And all that you have to do in this third step of summary of STEEPLE analysis by applying your judgment. Right? And you need to take an overall position of each factor and make an overall position of the industry once all these factors are put together. So the purpose of this analysis, why we have done STEEPLE. We have done STEEPLE because we want to understand whether this industry is attractive for future investments. Should the new competitors enter the industry because there is an attractiveness of growth? Or should my organization in total exit when the growth is not attractive? Based on this summary, we'll make a strategy and we'll make our strategic decision. To conclude, there is an example given in the book, which is example number 2.6, remote environment summary for luxury good industry. So just go through the facts of that particular industry. The fact states that the luxury good industry has declined. Why? Because there was decreased tourism across Europe and slow holiday season because of the instability in Middle East and downturn in China. All these facts can be used as a key example of how the remote environment has impacted the industry and how the environment is likely to affect future. Just take a note of all those facts and try to classify that, try to segregate that as per different factors: political, economic, social, technology, environmental, legal, ethical, etc. And based on that, to determine the overall position. Just go through that, and the concept which we have just revised will become even more clear too for all of you. That is all for this video. I hope all of you have found value in this video. If you have some queries, do write to me in comments. In next video, I'll be talking about industry environment analysis, which is the industry that the environment which determines the industry profitability. And we'll be talking about Michael Porter's 5 forces, which we need to understand to assess that the changes in industry environment. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much.